Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's class. How was your holiday? I hope everybody enjoyed the Salah period. Today we'll continue our course, Environmental Impact Assessment, Auditing and Environmental Law. Today, specifically, we'll be looking at the environmental impact assessment with respect to environmental impact assessment law in Nigeria. The learning outcomes and objectives of today, at the end of today's lecture, be able to define what environmental impact assessment is, list the objectives of EIA, explain the law of EIA application in Nigeria, and know the categories of projects that are subjected to EIA according to the EIA law in Nigeria. So the main purpose of environmental impact assessment is to help us to what? Plan, organize, and coordinate tasks that are necessary for what? To produce an EIA report. The main purpose is to what? Help us organize and coordinate the task by which we produce what we call an EIA report. The decision that the report will help us to do is to determine if the project should continue or if the development should go ahead. And in doing an EIA report, you need what we call specialized skills, specialized and managerial skills. The concept of EIA is made as a tool that is developed to what? To help us to manage the environment very well. Most governments and developmental institutions had come to the terms that environmental impact assessment help us to minimize environmental costs and also help us to sustain the environment for the future generation. So EIA is widely applied, but not primarily for projects, but for programs also. So what is EIA? What is environmental impact assessment? There are several definitions of environmental impact assessment, but let's just first look at a general view of what EIA is. Environmental assessment is an instrument of development. This can be the measure of air, the land, the water, the humans, and the animal. That means it is what we use to determine the likely impact a project will have on the environment before what? Before it's commenced. That means the project, the EIA is what? Should carry out the EIA before the project starts. Hello, are you people hearing me? Somebody said it's not hearing. Check your connection, please. So EIA is carried out on projects which are categorized in the EIA law to involve large public investment or large infrastructure, or has been determined to have impact on its immediate environment. That is why we carry out what we call EIA. So let's look at some definitions of EIA. An environmental impact assessment is an appraising of possible positive or negative impact that a proposed project may have on the environment, together consisting of the environmental, social, and economic aspects. An EIA is a process by which you look at the possibility of checking the positive and the negative impact of a proposed project or a proposed action on the environment. And when we talk of the environment, we don't only talk about the physical environment, we talk about the social environment and the economic aspect of the environment, which means a project may not have impact. A project may not have impact on the environment, but its impact will be on the social life of the people within that environment, or on the economic life of the people within that environment. It may not release toxic elements, it may not pollute the water, it may not pollute the air, but the impact that project will have will affect the social norms and the social culture of the people within that environment. Or it will change the dynamics of the economy of that community. So an environmental impact assessment don't only look at the environment media, which means the air, the land, the water, but also look at the social and the economic aspect. The International Association of Impact Assessment, the IAIA, define environmental impact assessment as the process of identifying, predicting, evaluating, and mitigating. Identifying, predicting, evaluating, and mitigating the biological, technical, social, and other relevant effects of developmental proposal prior to major decision being taken. That means an EIA looks at what is likely to happen. What are the likely problems this project will cause? Not now, probably in 5 years' time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time. It will predict it, and it will even evaluate whether the impacts are minimal or the impacts are large, or whether it is a residual impact or just a one-time or cumulative impact. And after doing that, after predicting, after identifying, and after evaluating, an EIA must also put in place a mitigation measure by which that impact can be what? Curtailed. So, and the impact can either be biological, or can either be technical or social, or other relevant aspects of the project. So, what are the distinguishing factors or features of an EIA? EIA can highlight when a project is likely to result in irreversible environmental damage. If you want to do a quarry, that means you need to blast the rock. And when you blast the rock, you can't get the rock back. That is an irreversible damage to the environment. And if you blast the rock and the place becomes wide open, the place is prone to what? Erosion. Cause adverse effect to value ecosystem, landscape, and other environmental factors. A cement factory working in a forested area will release a lot of particulate matter, will release a lot of dust. And these dust will cover the vegetation and it will cover the plants. And when it covers the plants will not be able to have direct sunlight, photosynthesis will occur, and the plant will continue to die. Could result in adverse health effects on a community. A classical example is petroleum refinery activity going on in the Niger Delta area, where gas flaring occur, release of toxic gas into the atmosphere, killing the of the community member. Sometimes it can also provide opportunity for environmental and social improvement. A project coming to a community may improve the environment of that community. It can also improve the social life. A place that is rural can become urban. A place that has no green area, if the company implement the project very well, it can increase the greening potential of that area. So what are the functions of an EIA? The first function of an EIA is to ensure that decision makers consider the ensuring environmental impact or likely environmental impact when deciding whether for a project to go on or not. Before a project can proceed, the government agency responsible for EIA must be able to look at the impact and say, okay, does this impact, this impact, are they minimal for the project to go ahead, or are they not? So an environmental impact helps us to decide whether we should give a project a go ahead. Let me give you an example of a key project that has been in the news for the past few days, and it has always been in the news for the past years. It's the super highway in Calabar. The super highway in Calabar was designed during Governor Donald Duke, and it's a very large super highway of about 10 lanes that will move from the southeast part to the north part of the country. However, the project, this highway will pass through a forested area where an endangered species, the chimpanzee, lives. And most of the animal protection organizations throughout the world are of the opinion that the chimpanzee that we are seeing there are the last set of chimpanzee that are available in the part of the world. They are only seen in Nigeria. So if that project is given a go ahead, there's probability that this chimpanzee will go into extinction. So they now ask the state government and the proponent of those projects to put in place mitigating measures. And that's why the project has not been given a go ahead. So an EIA, it's also an information tool that can be used for decision maker to determine whether a project can be given consent. You don't know whether if this project starts or if this project is given a go ahead, it will cause impact. So you want them to do an EIA to look into the likely impact that project will have. It also helps us to ensure that environmental information is one of the main factors that will be taken into account for us to make a decision whether a project should go ahead or not. I normally tell people that EIA started in Nigeria as a result of accident. EIA started in Nigeria as a result of accident. We started the EIA in Nigeria accidentally. If you have heard about the cocoa dump, we normally call it the Baba Nana in the old Bender state, where an old man was contracted by an Italian man that he has some materials to ship from Italy, and he dumped it on the man's land, and he said he would be paying rent for the land. Unknowingly for the old man, the waste the man dumped there is a toxic waste that an Italian toxic firm gave the Italian man to what? To go and dispose. But he doesn't want to dispose the waste because it costs a huge amount of money to dispose hazardous waste. So he decided to ship it to Nigeria and keep it on the land. Some few meters away from the man's land, it's a Shell facility. And federal government officials were going into the Shell facility to do an assessment. So when they collected water sample and test the water sample in the lab, they found out that the water sample collected contains some hazardous material. And they were curious that, Shell is a petroleum industry. What are they doing with an hazardous materials? After looking at all the activity in Shell, they could not trace the materials to Shell. They now decided to do a 2-kilometer radius analysis. So when they were taking sample around the 2-kilometer radius of the Shell facility, they found the dump. Hazardous material, it has been leaking and it has entered the ground. Water has carried it and it has carried it up to the Shell facility. That is why they were able to detect it in the Shell facility. Knowing this, they reported to the federal government, and it was during the President Babangida era. The military, they don't consult. The military just come up with several form of decree, hazardous waste decree, solid waste management decree, and one of the decree that came out that period was Environmental Impact Assessment Decree 86 of 1992, which do a project. So all facilities, all industry in Nigeria before 1992 were not doing EIA. So EIA started after the decree was promulgated by General Babangida in 1992. So it mandated that all projects of that category must do an EIA. But over the years, because we are no more in the military era and we cannot continue to use decree, the EIA Act has metamorphosized into an act. It is now called EIA Act Cap E12, Law of Federal Republic of Nigeria 2004. It was formerly EIA Decree 86 of 1992, but now it is EIA Act Cap E12, Law of Federal Republic of Nigeria 2004. The introduction of the EIA in Nigeria started as an accident, as I said, and most of the industry before that time don't have an EIA, but they were mandated to carry out what we call an environmental audit. So by that time, EIA was instituted into the Nigerian law. And the objective of the EIA Act, according to subsection 1 of the decree, says to determine if the proposed development is likely to significantly affect the environment, and this will be carried out by the government of the federation, state, or local government. That means for the EIA in Nigeria, the federal government cannot carry out an EIA of a project alone in Nigeria because environment is on the concurrent list in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So the EIA is implemented in Nigeria in conjunction with the state where the project is situated and the local government where the project will be. So that means federal government official, state government official, and local government official come together and what? Implement the EIA. To implement the appropriate policy in the area where the proposed development is to take place, and must also be in constant with the state and local government law and decision process. Don't say because EIA is a federal law, the federal officials will only do it themselves. No, they must carry the state and the local government law along. In 2005, there was a court statement, a court judgment that says physical planning regulations only reside in the state. So even if you get your approval from federal, whatever you are going to build on it, you must meet with the state physical planning agency for them to give you an approval. So sometimes you have to work with the state and you also have to work with the local government bylaw. Also, to develop procedure for information exchange, notification, and consultation when proposed development are likely to have significant environmental effect. That means the local government, the community, the town where the project will be sited, you need to make information available. You need to consult them. You need to tell them what are the likely impact the project will have on them. Also to consider the extent, nature, and location of the proposed project and activity in such a way that significant effect to the environment will be very minimal. So in the decree or in the EIA Act, there are particular set of things that the law says the EIA report must contain. The first one, a description of the proposed activity. What do you want to do? You must let the people know in the report. You must also a description of the potential affected environment. You must let them know the environment that it will be affected. You must also describe the practical activities and give detailed description of the process by which that activity will occur. An assessment of the likely potential environmental impact, how it's going to affect the water, how it's going to affect the land, how it's going to affect the air. You must also document it. Whether it's going to be a cumulative direct effect or indirect effect, a cumulative short-term or long-term, let them know, and it must be properly documented. You must also put in place measures by which those effects must be what? Mitigated. Also, you must include a brief and non-technical summary of the information in it, which we call executive summary. you must make the executive summary available, because you don't expect a commissioner, you don't expect a governor, you don't expect a top government official to read that huge document. So an executive summary is very, very important. So according to the EIA Act in Nigeria, what are the projects that are mandated for EIA? They call mandatory projects under the EIA Act. And I'll just run through them. When you are doing an agricultural land, you are doing an agriculture farm settlement, or you are involving in agriculture, and the land area is over 500 hectares, you must carry out an EIA. If you are constructing an airport, you must also do an EIA. If you are doing this, you must do an EIA. Less than 50, you come to the state ministries to do the EIA. But anything above 50 hectares, you go to Federal Ministry of Environment in Abuja for the EIA. Also for fisheries, you must carry out an EIA. So this shows the list of the diagram. The figure above shows the various projects that you must, it's mandatory in Nigeria before you do an EIA, for you to do a power plant, a waste treatment plant, for you to carry out a railway, a resort, a port, infrastructure, housing project, you must do an EIA. Also, if you want to do a forest project, or you want to do logging, you must carry out an EIA. Housing, you must do an EIA. If you want to do an industry, not all industry, categories of industry are what you listed below. Any industry above 100 tons per day, the production capacity of 100 tons per day, you must do it. However, all petrochemical industry, irrespective of the tonnage, you must do an EIA. But if you want to do non-metallic facility, 30 tons or 100 tons per day, you must do an EIA. If you want to do a shipyard, if you want to do pulp and paper industry production capacity greater than 50 tons, you must also do an EIA. If you want to construct an hospital, if you want to do a beachfront, if you want to do an estate covering 50 hectares above, you must also do an EIA. So when you are doing a road, you are doing a new town, you must also do an EIA. Any mining activity, you want to mine or sand dredging or anything, it is mandatory you do an EIA. I've talked that any form of petroleum, any form of power generation and transmission, you must carry out an EIA. Railway, any form of transportation that you are going to move large people, whether a BRT system or a dedicated lane, an EIA must also be carried out. If you want to do a waste treatment facility, whether for hazardous or for municipal solid waste, you must also do an EIA. Water supply, if you want to construct a dam, or you want to make a reservoir in a place for surface area water of 200 hectares above, you must also do an EIA. If you want to do an urban water system that you are going to extract water from the ground in excess of 4,500 cubic meters per day, EIA is very, very important. In conclusion, EIA is aimed to minimize the negative impact of projects on the environment. So some developmental activity require EIA according to the law, which are referred to as mandatory. Some projects are not mandatory, but if they are going to be sited in a very sensitive environment, EIA is also required. Some people say, but my project is not big now, my project is not large, but you are citing the project in a very sensitive environment. Imagine somebody wants to do a project on a wetland, or you want to do a project in a forested area that has a lot of biodiversity. They want you to do an EIA because the environment you are doing the project is a very sensitive environment. So it is very, very key. Not all projects, not all large size of the project, the size of the project or the mandatory list we use. They are what we call criteria by which government officials or EIA experts use to determine whether an EIA should be conducted for a project or not. We will talk about that during the process of EIA. So let's do a recap. Let's do a recap. Today I said we will be talking about environmental impact assessment with respect to EIA law in Nigeria. And at the end of the unit, you'll be able to define what environmental impact assessment is, list the objective of EIA, and explain the EIA application process in Nigeria. I said environmental impact assessment is an instrument used to determine the impact of a development on the surrounding environment. And the impact can either be on the media, which can be air, land, water, or on the humans or the animals. Apart from that, it can also determine how the project will impact the social, cultural, or the economic activity of the host community. By definition, I said environmental impact assessment, according to International Association of Impact Assessment, is the process of identifying, predicting, evaluating, and mitigating the biological, technical, social, and other relevant effects of a developmental proposal prior to a major decision is taken. That means an EIA must be carried out before the project commences. Don't start the project and you now say you decision makers to make decisions towards it. And I also, it tells us that EIA started in Nigeria as a form of accident. It started as a form of accident, and I gave you the history of how a cocoa toxic waste came into Nigeria and helps the country to open our eye to the various forms of laws that we should use to protect our environment. There are several laws now that started during that military era, and now it's now become an art. One of the laws that started due to the outfall of that cocoa toxic waste is the EIA Decree 86 of 1992, which has now metamorphosed into EIA Act Cap E12, Law of Federal Republic of Nigeria 2004. So, and I list under the Schedule 1 of the decree or the act what the objectives of the EIA is. And I said EIA in Nigeria cannot be carried out by the federal agency alone. It has to be with, it has to go with the state and the local government, because environment is on the concurrent list in Nigeria. So you cannot say you want to use federal might on it or you want to use the state might. It is on the concurrent list. The federal government has the power to legislate on the environment. The state government has the power to legislate on the environment, and the local government also has the power to legislate on the environment. So, and I gave a brief description of what is expected in an EIA report. In our subsequent class, I'll give you full details of what an EIA report is all about. Sorry, the system is hanging. So, and I decided to explain that not all projects, you should carry out EIA for all projects. They are what we call mandatory projects under the EIA Act in Nigeria. And I was able to show you the mandatory list via a figure. The airports, housing projects, industrial mining, infrastructure, ports, railway, transportation, dredging, land reclamation, petroleum industry, and waste disposal are projects that are categorized. And some as what we call boundary. So anything above 50 hectares, federal government handle it. Anything below 50 hectares, the state government handle it. And I gave example of the tonnage capacity by which industries who are doing, so don't expect somebody that wants to do a small cottage iron industry now say should come and do an EIA when all its production capacity is less than 1 million in a year, and you want the person to come and do an EIA of 5 or 10 million naira. You are killing the industry. So in conclusion, I said environmental impact assessment, the aim of environmental impact assessment is to help us to minimize the negative impact of environmental activities within the environment. So let's have our take-home assignment. Define environmental impact assessment, list 4 major main objectives of EIA, list 5 projects that are mandatory to EIA process and give reason for your answer. Just take it home. No submission, just take it home and read over it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Any question? Any question? You are free to talk. Any question?
Thank you, Mr. Lassis. Thank you, sir. We are very clear with the message.
You're welcome, sir. No other question? Any comments? So we'll see you next Saturday by 5. Bye, sir. Thank you.
Nice, sir.
Mr. Innocent, how are you?
Hi, sir. Good evening, sir. Longest time, sir.
A long time. We are seeing you for the first time. How
Yes,
far?
sir.
You are free today.
So I've been having a very rough time. It's not been easy.
Don't worry. God will guide us.
Amen, sir.
Okay. Take care. Nice,
Hello, sir.
Nice hearing from you.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Dave, I greet you, sir.
Every day, my brother. I'm very fine. Nice work.
Hi, sir. Oh, bless God, sir. Right on, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a nice time.
Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Lasisi.
Yeah, bye. Bye.
All right, sir.
Yeah, bye.
All right, sir. Bye, sir.